Okay, now we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. I call the Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. All board directors, with the exception of Director Glover, are present. Please note that this regular scheduled meeting is held to conduct district business. It is open to the public and is being recorded. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any discussion prior to the vote on the agenda approval? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by David and seconded by Jennifer to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. The agenda is approved. All right, we have a very, very joyful celebration for this evening. For our awards and recognition presentation, I am going to pass it over to Director Butler to take over.
All right, thank you very much. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of being able to introduce a donation that the district is going to receive on behalf of a Peninsula School District legend that we all know and love, Hugh McMillan. And so if we can travel back in time to 2021, when the Hugh and Janice McMillan Community Center was officially given that name out at Evergreen Elementary, there was a plaque, and this is that plaque. And so I'm going to go ahead and read what the plaque says, and then I'm going to turn it over to Marcia Harris, former board member and close friend of Hugh McMillan, to introduce or reveal the donation. So, presented to Hugh McMillan, through your words and photographs, you shined a light on the students and staff in the Peninsula School District. You believed our stories were worthy of being told, and we will carry that with us forever. Thank you for your inspiration. Your legacy will live on in the many lives you have touched. Peninsula School District Board of Directors, May 27th, 2021. So with that, Marcia Harris.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here tonight, and I haven't done much public speaking recently, so forgive me if I shed a few tears, but it is a real privilege to have the community center at Evergreen be named after Hugh and Janice. And by the way, families here, Lance and Sherry and Cameron. And Hugh was an amazing person, and I'm not going to give you his life story, but from the Peninsula Schools Education Foundation perspective, after the foundation was incorporated and got its tax-exempt IRS status, they appointed a board of trustees. And Hugh McMillan was one on that first board of directors. And he did a remarkable job, and he served on that board until essentially the end, more than 25 years. And so it's fitting that a community center and at Evergreen be named after Hugh. And so we would like to, as the Peninsula Schools Education Foundation, add one more bonus to honoring Hugh, and that is a picture created by Chris Brunstead and our amazing artist out on the Key. And I think maybe it's time to award that. We have several board meeting members here, and so Chris, one amazing guy. Yes, it is. It is a wonderful picture and truly represents Hugh and Janice and who they are. And thank you for doing that, Chris. But more importantly, thank you also for going through the steps with Patrick Gillespie to get it appropriately placed, which is where this picture will be tomorrow morning. Chris. Right. Well, a big part of, helping getting it framed and having the PSCF do that in addition to your donation of the picture itself. And we're just amazed by your talent, Chris. Would you like to say anything?
Just a word or two. So this is a very, very special painting, portrait of two very special people who I got the opportunity to know and the honor to know over a number of years being in the school district teaching, and a delightful couple, and it meant a lot to me. I talked with Hugh about doing this portrait. It's an oil painting. I had done a similar painting before, a drawing, and I talked with him about doing this, and he thought it was a great idea and he appreciated it. And so there it is. Thank you.
I know you have a long board meeting ahead of you, but I am going to thank the members of the PSCF board that are here and former board members that are here and maybe some future board members that are here. And without further ado, we would like to present the painting to you. I guess we do it to you, Natalie.
Marcia, thank you for that. That was beautiful. It's an honor to be able to remember Hugh and Janice in that way. And I also want to point out we have another former PSD board member here with us tonight, Deb Krishnadasan, who is here obviously as a constant supporter of schools, but also as the first recipient of the Hugh and Janice McMillan Award for Service. Miriam Batson was also going to be here. She was a second recipient. She's unwell tonight, not feeling well, but thank you for your support and for being someone who carries the legacy of service that Hugh set for all of us. So, thank you, everyone. Okay, item 5 on our agenda this evening are reports from our student reps. So, who wants to start this evening? Welcome back, you guys. Happy October. Lauren, do you want to start from CTP?
Hello, my name is Lauren Holmberg, and I am the student representative for the Community Transition Program. Here are some of the fun and cool events that are coming up. This Thursday, October 17th, the Henderson Bay CTP Booster Club is going to have a table at Henderson Bay Parent Night. They are going to sell homemade dog treats and Play-Doh made by CTP students. The first general meeting for the Booster Club will be on Thursday, November 7th at Henderson Bay at 6 o'clock p.m. Another fun event coming up on October 22nd is Meals for Morton. Meals for Morton is to honor Barb Morton, who taught students how to cook for themselves, and will serve a spaghetti dinner at the Peninsula High School Commons from 5 to 7 p.m. You can buy tickets online or at the door for $10. All donations will support PSD Occupational Therapist and the Meals for Morton project to ensure her vision continues. We started a new job this month at Achieve Physical Therapy. It's a place where we clean the equipment and building and wash their towels. Keith, the owner, who sent us this message, I'd like to read to you. Thank you for being a part of our team at Achieve Physical Therapy. What you are doing for our office by keeping things clean and sanitized is a vital part of keeping people safe and healthy when they come to physical therapy at our clinic. Thanks again, and I look forward to meeting and working with all of you. For Fun Friday last week, we went to the current apple orchard, and it was very interesting. We picked apples, we learned about a horse named Brewster, and we saw bat houses where bats lived in. Thank you for letting me speak to the board today.
Did you guys get to ride Brewster, or did you just...
It was more a statue. It was more like a statue, not a real horse.
Oh, got it, not a real horse. Okay, so no. Outstanding. Any questions, comments for CTP? No, thank you, Lauren. Okay, I guess we'll just go down the line then, Peninsula, with Adam and Kate.
Yeah, hi. I'm Adam. I'm the senior rep for Peninsula High School, and you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kate, and I'm the junior rep.
All right, so starting off, so the theater at PHS, our fall play is actually written by our own students this year, and it's going to be called Robin Hood and the Trial of Truth, and that's going to be November 15th at 7 p.m., so I'm actually super excited to go see that. We're going to have our college career fair on October 21st, so especially our seniors, now that deadlines are coming up for college apps, especially UW, can explore different colleges and careers that students might be interested in. We're also going to have our Club Rush, which is October 24th. Clubs are really excited for this year's Club Rush, and this is a really good opportunity for new clubs to emerge, and as well as for a lot more students, especially the freshmen, to join the really big current ones. We're also gearing up for Veterans Day and Winterfest. Our ASB is doing a lot to get ready for those. I don't know what we're doing for Veterans Day, but they told me we're doing something good. So the homecoming game on Friday was amazing, as I've heard. And our homecoming assembly was actually really cool. Everybody was super loud, and we had a jousting event. So one kid from every single class or grade would come up, and then they had like a little tournament. Sophomores won, which is okay. But seniors got in the final, so it's okay. Also at the Hoko game, we had a Miracle Minute, and we raised $500. And so we're going to do another Miracle Minute at the upcoming soccer game, which is the 18th at 7 p.m. The theme is Pink Out. If you guys want to go, we strongly suggest you go. Also, the homecoming dance on Saturday was a ton of fun. We had 800 kids come to the dance this year, which was a lot of kids. And I also want to point out that our school spirit this year has been genuinely has been the best it's ever been in a while. We had tons of people dress up for Spirit Week. Like I said, tons of people show up to Hoko. The games have been great. Sportsmanship has been great. Just shout out to PHS students because we've been doing really good. Also, our fall sports have been doing great. Ton of participation. Everybody's having a fun time. I'll list out what we got. We got boys tennis, girls swim and dive, water polo, football, volleyball, girls soccer, cross country for boys and girls, cheer, and then speech and debate. And recently, Electra Higgins finished second in the ultra competitive Nike Hole in the Wall Invitational on Saturday, and in doing that, she defeated multiple nationally ranked runners, which is really impressive. Choir has their fall concert on the 16th at 7 o'clock, and then at that same day and time, boys senior night for football is happening. We also have our only home cross-country meet on Wednesday, and boys tennis season has their last match on Thursday away at North Thurston. We're currently ranked number 1 in our league going into the league tournament, which is on Monday. All right, so now we got some news from our feeder schools. So we have reports from Harbor Ridge Middle School. We have quite a lot from them. And then we have a little bit from Purdy and Vaughn. So I'm going to let Kate do that.
Okay, so from Harbor Ridge, they told us they had a drill day on the second Friday of school. They did all the emergency drills in one day. So they did a fire drill, a lockdown, evacuation, and earthquake. They said it went really well and everyone knew what to do, which is great. They've had very good fall sports so far. They had volleyball, cross country, and soccer. They said they've had over 150 kids involved, and they end this week. And they've had great sportsmanship, but they're very excited about their boys and girls wrestling starting on Monday. They have 5 clubs currently going. They have a writing club, a book club, kindness, homework, and a Dungeon and Dragons, which are all on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they're just a great way for all their kids to participate. They have a musical from the Tacoma Musical Playhouse, a month of rehearsals before their 2 performances on November 15th at 6:30 and November 16th at 11. It's free for everyone, and they have 43 kids involved in the play, and it's covered through VPO and ASB. They have their first student advisory council meeting, which is every month, and it's across a section of students with different races and sexual orientation, just to ask how they think things are going in the school, like what we should change, what is going well, what are they hearing in the hallway, and it's been going really good. They did a Building a Sense of Belonging survey, which they took during prime time, and they asked questions like, do you feel like you belong? Do you feel like you matter? Do you have an adult to go to? And they had 89 to 90% yes for all of their questions, which they were super proud of all their kids. And their kids are really taking time to support each other, to hold the door for people and pick up their stuff, so it's been really good. Purdy has had a great start to the year with their September Year of Kindness, which inspired kids to make a kindness chain wrapped around the gym, and they celebrated this at their Panther Pride Assembly. This month they're focusing on bullying prevention and goal setting. Their PTA held a fun run, which was a huge success, raising over $16,000. They're looking forward to Veterans Day and their performances on November 14th. Vaughn started this year with a lot of positivity, and they had their first student recognition assembly. They celebrated individual students for following Husky Pride expectations. Also, one of the students from each class was given a positive call home, which the principal said was such a special way to reinforce positive behavior. It has also been recognizing students through staff and student referrals, and an adult can submit positive office referrals for students, and students can give Husky high fives. Both are read on announcements to the entire school. That's everything from our feeder schools. Thank you.
Okay. Caitlin, you ready to give
Hi.
us the Gig Harbor report?
Yeah, so I'm the junior representative from Gig Harbor High School. My name's Caitlin. It's definitely been a busy time at Gig Harbor. So this week we are administering the PSAT to both our sophomores and our juniors, with the sophomores having completed that testing today, and then the juniors will do that tomorrow. And then we had a really great turnout for our homecoming football game, the dance, and great participation in our homecoming spirit week, which all was that first week of October. This week in our school is also Nutrition Services Appreciation Week, so we're focusing on showing gratefulness to all of our professionals that make sure kids have meals at school. And then, like Adam mentioned, we have that college and career fair coming up on October 21st, and that'll be held for Gig Harbor, Peninsula, and Henderson Bay. It's also a really busy time for sports right now. Our boys water polo has a game on Thursday against Silas High School. Boys tennis has their senior night today and a game against Lincoln, and then they'll have their final league match coming up on Thursday against Bellarmine. Girls swim and dive had meets today and Thursday this week, and then we'll have a swimvitational all day this Saturday at Olympic High School. Volleyball has a game tomorrow against Lincoln to continue their season, and then girls soccer will have games today and Thursday against Setchell Kipsap and Sumner High Schools. Our JV and C teams for football played yesterday against CK and Enumclaw High Schools, where our C team was able to win, and then our varsity will have an away game on Friday, and that'll be at Mount Tahoma High School. Cross country is also going against Peninsula in a meet tomorrow to continue their season as well. And then a shout out to our clubs and activities. Our Tides and Combined Seahawks and JROTC was selected to represent Washington State at the 2025 National Independence and Memorial Day Parades. That'll take place in Washington, D.C., where they'll march down Constitution Avenue as a huge honor for both of our schools. And that's all I have today.
Outstanding. Thank you. Okay, Amelia.
Hi, my name is Amelia, and I'm the Henderson Bay representative for the board. This past few weeks and these next 2 weeks, for the month of October, we have activity time every Wednesday after our all-school meeting. But for October, we're trying a different schedule where we have our full 45 minutes of activity time every other week, and then our all-school meetings on opposing weeks. So we did this to prioritize more effective all-school meetings and to allow for more activity time for busy seniors and ASB members who don't feel like they get enough activity time after our all-school meetings. Homecoming was these past 2 weekends, and Henderson can participate in both or whichever one they choose. And so I had a fun time, and I know Henderson students had a really fun time going to homecomings. We had our first graduation meeting with Jostens this past week, and so that was really fun, and getting all our orders in, so that's a big thing for Henderson-based students. And we also got a bunch of information about the FAFSA and WASFA, which we're really excited about. This week and upcoming, so it's October 14th to November 7th, we have something called a Harvest Hootenanny, and it's kind of a around Thanksgiving food gathering event. So each class or each grade has 2 specific items that they bring in, including the staff has 2 specific items. And so that's from October 14th to November 7th. And then the class that brings in the most items gets a golden turkey trophy. And the staff won last year, but we're really excited to try and beat them this year. This Thursday, the 17th, we have our family night at Henderson Bay, which is from 6 to 7:30, which is when parents and students can come to the school and we can go through our schedule and meet our teachers and really interact with everybody. We're going to have a raffle and pizza, and it's going to be a really exciting night. And something that was also mentioned was the new booster club for the Henderson CTP will be there, and they'll have a booth, and they'll have a lot more information about that, which is really exciting. Our first quarter ends on November 1st, Henderson has a quarter system instead of a semester system, so we're really excited about that. Our blood drive this year is on Wednesday, October 30th. We didn't get to give blood last year, so we're super excited to donate blood this year, and it's a big community event that we really like to do. And then Adam mentioned a little bit about Robin Hood, but I am involved in the play and the theater program, so he let me speak a little bit more about it, because many students at Henderson Bay go to Peninsula either after school or during their sixth period to work on the play, including myself. I'm the calling stage manager for Robin Hood. So tickets, I have a little blurb. Tickets are on sale now for our student-written production called The Adventures of Robin Hood and the Trial for Truth. When King Richard returns from the Third Crusade, he finds chaos. Robin Hood is about to be executed for murder. As Richard investigates, he hears wildly different stories from unreliable witnesses, including a detective noir, a mini musical, and a cowboy heist. Don't miss this exciting genre-blending show. Grab your tickets via the QR code found on posters around the community or on our Instagram page at Hawk Scene. So I just wanted to give a little more excitement to our play. And that's all I have for this meeting.
Awesome. Wow, you guys are so busy. I just can't believe we're at the end of the sports season already to hear senior nights and wrap-ups already. We're rolling right along. I have a question. One of the schools said that they're doing all of the drills, and I just heard that October 17th is like the Great Shake, or it's supposed to be an all-state earthquake drill. Are we doing anything for that? Do we know? No? Not to put anyone on the spot. Okay. It's like an emergency drill.
Yes, they are.
Oh, they are. Is it supposed to be a surprise? I mean, it's on Pandora, so I figure if I know, everybody knows. Okay. Blood drive the day before Halloween. It was almost perfect. That's brilliant. Okay. All right. Well, we will see how many people we can drive to that play. That sounds like it's going to be great. Thank you, guys. All right. Any other questions, comments for our student reps? Okay. We are rolling right on to our reports for the evening. So we have just one tonight. It is item 6.1, the start of the year review. So I'll call John Yellowlees up to kick it off.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Board of Directors and Superintendent Barr. Thank you for your time this evening. So we are here tonight just to provide a brief teaching and learning update for the beginning of the 24-25 school year. Let's see if this clicker is working here. Okay, so what we're going to cover this evening is an update on our district improvement plan and our focus in teaching and learning for the school year. James Cantonwine, Director of Research and Assessment, is here to talk about last year's graduation rate. So we have a very up-to-date report on our graduation rates. We'll talk about some ELA and math data, projected proficiency. And then Kelsey Park is here this evening also to provide a CTE update. The board will receive a comprehensive CTE report from Kelsey after winter break, but she's here today to provide a preview and an exciting CTE update. So with that, whoops. Oh, are you doing this? Sorry. Okay. So there's a lot that goes on in teaching and learning on a day-to-day basis, but based on our district improvement plan, we've kind of identified these priorities as a district here to focus on and support our 17 schools. So you can see we've kind of broken this down into some district-wide priorities, some elementary priorities, and some secondary priorities. So to begin with, one of our major initiatives is UDL, Universal Design for Learning. So district-wide, we'll continue to focus on implementation of UDL strategies to improve learning for all students and improve inclusion and rigor. And this year, we're focused on formative assessment, feedback, and self-reflection. So we'll continue to support schools in implementation of UDL strategies, establish routine student advisories and focus groups. So we've talked with you about focus groups and student advisories previously. So all schools now have student advisories in place, and they're meeting with those student groups every 6 weeks. And we're beginning to explore and review math curriculum and instruction K through 12. So as you all know, we're currently working on ELA pilots and adoptions across the district. beginning that work to look at what we're doing with math, our math curriculum, and instructional practices in the area of math. Okay, so now specific to elementary, our focus continues to be on developing our multi-tiered systems of support and implementing those with fidelity. So really focused on creating pathways and preventing and responding consistently to reading difficulties across our 10 elementary schools. Also, establishing consensus around an ELA adoption for our elementary schools. So our goal is we're pretty much close to being finished with our first elementary pilot. We'll move into our second elementary pilot here in November. And then in the spring, we hope to bring to the board a recommendation for a new ELA adoption, core adoption. At the secondary level, again, working on our multi-tiered systems of support. We've done more work on pathways, reading pathways, and math at the elementary level, but we're going to continue that work at the secondary level in developing literacy and math pathways. So providing rigorous core instruction and ensuring that we have Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions and enrichment in place for all students. Establishing consensus around middle school ELA. So again, we're partway, mostly through our first pilot at the middle school level. We'll conduct our second pilot here in November, and then hope to bring to the board a recommendation in the spring for ELA adoption at the middle level. And then finally, establishing clear practices for outreach to unconfirmed transfers and dropouts. So really focused on consistently addressing those students who leave our system, either drop out or unconfirmed transfers. James will speak to that in a little bit in terms of how that impacts our graduation rate percentages. So those are our focus priorities for the 24-25 school year. And I'm going to turn it over to James to talk about graduation rates and some ELA and math data.
All right, good evening. So our graduation rates, these are the official graduation rates. They became official with the state today. So they had a little bit of a delay. They're usually up a little bit earlier, but they had some issues on their own data systems. So graduation rates, as you can see, the class of 2023, if you remember, those were the record high graduation rates for each of our schools. They've come down a little bit. Those would be the records. If it weren't for 2023, those would be the records for our schools. As a district overall, we are up 1/10 of a percentage point. That might not make sense given that we're a little bit lower at each site, but it has to do with how many students were at each of those sites. So our graduation rate at this time last year we shared was 90.7, and now we're at 90.8. That represents one kid. Just to be clear, one kid is about 1/10 of a percentage point in our class. As far as kind of what happened with our students, just to give you a rundown of some of the numbers, we had 702 students graduate last year, and that's graduated as of August 31st. So we had some students that really needed to get in those last couple days of the year, and that's when the year from a graduation standpoint ends, is August 31st. We have 32 students who are going to continue on with us. So what that means, and it can be a lot of different things. It can mean a student just coming back and finishing out credit requirements during a 5th year. For 15 of those students, those are students with disabilities who are going to continue to be served by the Peninsula School District, and certainly have that right until they're 21, 22, depending on the law. And so then we also have an additional 8 students who are in that same category who are enrolled in our Open Doors Fresh Start program with TCC. And so they're attending courses at Tacoma Community College with the intent of getting a high school diploma and possibly an associate's degree at the same time. We have 9 students from the class of 24 that are still unconfirmed transfers. So the student or the family told us that they were attending somewhere out of state or a private school. Usually it's out of state. And then we could never get a hold of the school. And to confirm that, in a lot of cases, we lose contact with the family as well. So they tell us they're leaving on the way out, and then we can't actually track that down. The state counts those students as dropouts. The reason they do that is because they want to make sure that we don't have an incentive to just stop looking. They want to make sure that we have that incentive to continue looking for students. We do also have 13 students who are confirmed dropouts. So this means that reaching out to the family in each of these cases multiple times for different reasons, the family has said, yes, the student has dropped out for one reason or another. And then we have 12 students that have an unknown status. So these are typically students that stop showing up and they don't respond when we're reaching out to all of their different contacts on their enrollment paperwork. So that's kind of a look at the class of 24. If you were trying to do the math, you'll notice that these numbers don't quite add up perfectly. There are some other students in other categories that their circumstances are a little bit too unique to just throw out there in a public meeting. But these could include things like a student who earns a GED. They could include, there's actually a status code for students who are deceased during their high school time. We didn't have any students in that category. And so we can see, there's other students that end up in those kind of specialty buckets that will have one or two in there. Any questions about grad rate before
I just have the
Yeah.
dropout, the confirmed dropout set specifically from the class of 2024, that one cohort,
Correct.
those who would be graduating within their 13 years.
That's correct.
Okay.
Do you want to start? Oh, sorry.
Whatever's going to work for you. It's your meeting.
Is there, you had mentioned that for continuing students that are entitled to go until age 21, is there not a provision for that? Because they're not.
There is not.
Okay.
And again, from a data quality standpoint, that's an attempt by the state and the federal government as well to make sure that we're not just going to say a student with disability is always going to graduate later, because many of our students with disabilities do graduate on time. So they do count as a student who did not graduate. They do count against the grad rate in that sense.
So I was going to wait till the end, but have two then. The 2023 record, I know at the beginning of COVID, the state said students couldn't receive a grade below C or a B. I mean, didn't matter what.
Below a B for the spring of 2020.
Right. So did that contribute to the record graduation rate at all?
No, we were seeing slow kind of noise, I would say, year to year, and it happened to be that all three of our schools had a particularly good year. I think from Henderson Bay's standpoint, that was due to a lot of systems changes and a lot of real improvements. From Gig Harbor and Peninsula, they had good years. They weren't completely out of the norm from what they'd had before. They were just slightly better years. If things stay the same with the state board, this will be the first year in state history without some kind of assessment-related waiver. So we'll see if the waivers play a big role in that.
Okay.
But we've always had a waiver of some kind.
And then can you just touch back, because I would have asked earlier if I could have, is the focus group, what's the, what exactly is going to be the purpose of those focus groups you mentioned in your earlier slide?
Oh, so the focus groups are going to take a lot of different forms depending on the needs of the individual school. So in some cases, they're going to be responding to, like you heard from the student board representatives, they might be responding to survey data. That, well, students said this, we don't really know what that means, tell us more. In some cases, they're going to be outreach to a particular equity group, or trying to get an idea of like, well, we have these ideas, what do you think about these? But really trying to improve the culture and climate of the school.
Okay. I appreciate that. I know we've asked for focus groups, so I appreciate you doing that.
So now if I can get real nerdy on you. Hopefully that's okay. So we're going to take a look at projected proficiency. We've got some advantages with iReady and Smarter Balanced. These are assessments that are very tightly correlated. We've been part of kind of a correlation study within the state just to make sure that when iReady is making a prediction that it is reasonably accurate towards the end of the year. So we can use that to look at our fall data and make some predictions about what are we going to see in the spring on Smarter Balanced. Again, these are projections. That's not like fate or destiny in that sense. And the error rate is going to increase as the group size decreases. So tools like iReady, and there are others as well, but tools like that don't make a prediction about an individual student, because that's pretty hard to say what's going to happen in this individual student's life over the next 180 days, right? That's a pretty tough one. If we're talking about what's going to happen across the 750 students who are enrolled in the district at a grade level, now we can kind of make some projections based on what we typically see in groups of that size. So these projections are based on different growth scenarios, and in your packet you've got more detail than we're going to look at here. I was told there were limits to what I could go through in a presentation. And just as an example, third grade reading, based on our fall data, if students don't grow at all, if they took iReady in September and then we turned around the next day and gave them the Smarter Balance test for their grade, be wildly unfair, but we could expect that 40% of our students would pass at that point. That says not so much about what's the great work that's going to go on in their third grade classroom. That says something about the skills the students started the year with, thanks to their kindergarten, first grade, second grade instruction, and whatever they're bringing to us from their home environment, from outside. So that's looking at 40% proficiency in third grade reading prior to them actually receiving third grade instruction. Yeah, it's pretty exciting, right? 40% of students meet the standard. If we have typical growth, and typical in this case wouldn't be necessarily growth that's typical within Peninsula School District. This would be growth that's typical of the nation, really. We would expect to see 63% of students be proficient based on our fall scores. So we'd expect to see another 23% of our students become proficient as a result of routine instruction. There are also going to be students who are going to go from currently meeting expectations to now really exceeding them. There are going to be students that go from currently at a first grade level to then at a second grade, almost at a third grade level. They'll still show up as not having met proficiency, but they'll have grown quite a bit. The other scenario that, again, is in your packets is a way of looking at what's stretch growth. Stretch growth has a kind of an interesting set of definitions with iReady that I can go into if you'd like, but ultimately it means the most realistic, ambitious target. Right, so when we look at, and that works out to something around the 85th percentile of growth. So compared to other places, what kind of growth? And then at that point, we would see 73% of our students be proficient. So again, the differences between the no growth, typical growth, and stretch growth are in your packets. As we're going to look at these next couple slides, we're going to focus on the typical growth scenario. So the projections in ELA, you can see it there on the screen. If those predictions hold true, and this is the first year in a while that we've really kind of looked at these because we've had so many data quality issues around the pandemic and remote schooling and everything. It's going to be really interesting to see how accurate these are and what kind of growth we think we should be able to expect within the Peninsula School District. But if those projections hold true, those would be pretty large gains from where we've been in the past in middle school, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then at elementary school, they're going to be pretty close to what we've seen in the past, the 63, 66, and 71%. When we, again, talk about these tests, it's important to know that they're not exactly the same. So iReady is entirely multiple choice, the A, B, C, D answer style. And then it's also, from a projecting Smarter Balanced perspective, it's really only looking at vocabulary and comprehension. There are some measurements there around high frequency words, around phonics, around phonemic awareness, because those don't show up as their own strands within Smarter Balance. Those really aren't included here in those projections. In math, you can see a bit of a different story there. Again, the same test differences. So we've got multiple choice only on iReady. In Smarter Balance, there's multiple choice. There's short answer entry by the students. There's also a really important component that they need to be able to show and explain their work. And that doesn't show up on iReady. Interestingly, these two tests are actually more tightly correlated than the reading and the ELA ones are. If those projections hold true, those are going to be really large gains at 3rd, 4th, and 6th grade, especially 3rd grade. Like 80% proficiency in 3rd grade math. That's fantastic. And then again, if those projections hold true, we're pretty similar to where we've been in the past in 5th, 7th, and 8th grade. None of these are projecting bad news in terms of where we've been in the past. The worst you could say is they look like where we've been in the past. But we do see some pretty solid growth indicated from where we've been. We know that on a number of these tests, like in ELA, particularly at elementary school, we usually see higher than typical growth. And so we might expect to see something a little bit higher than that. But again, when iReady provides these projections, they're really basing that on what's typical growth around the nation, not necessarily typical growth within the Peninsula School District specifically.
But you don't consider 45% math proficiency in 8th grade bad news?
I'd say it's not bad news in the sense that that's roughly where we've been, has been in the mid-40s. So in that sense, it's not really different news. And again, we're looking at if we make typical growth. In 8th grade, we have tended to make a little bit better than typical growth across our middle schools. That's varied a little bit from year to year, but we typically see something slightly better than what iReady says is typical, or occasionally we see something quite a bit better.
Yes, I do have a question. So we've talked a lot about knowing that these tests are not the end-all be-all. Clearly, we know that students are learning and that, teachers in their classroom can articulate that much better than what we're going to see on these scores. But when we're looking at curriculum adoption, you say, right, it's right here, the iReady tests on very different criteria in a very different way. How does that correlate to our curriculum and how we're teaching and what that looks like? Because we don't want to teach to a test, but yet we want to see gains on these proficiency rates. So what's the best way to get there?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So we absolutely don't want to see people kind of in general teaching to the test, particularly a test like iReady. So iReady is going to be a multiple choice test. The better a student is at knowing which one of those 4 answers really doesn't make sense, right, which is a great test taking strategy. And sometimes it's a good strategy for life, knowing which of my options is really a bad one and I'm going to look at something else. But we don't want to rely too much on that. If we're talking about teaching to the test, when we're looking at the test design of Smarter Balanced, we have something that starts to look more like classroom instruction. The reason that we don't necessarily give those all the time is they take a lot of time, and they're really expensive to score. So Smarter Balance is scored, particularly the showing and explaining work, that's scored by actual humans. And so that's not cheap for the state to go through. They are, the short answers can in some cases be scored by a machine because we can know that we should see an answer that's this number or that's in this range. So some of those can be machine scored. So when we think about teaching to the test with Smarter Balanced, that's maybe a little bit better than what we normally think of. We're not just teaching kids how to fill in the appropriate bubble like when we were in school, right? We're teaching students more about how to show their work. But you're absolutely right that there's no single assessment that's really going to capture what does a year of instruction look like. And there's really no single assessment that's going to show in great detail progress for our students who are currently experiencing the most challenges and for our students who are currently the most accelerated. There's no single assessment that's really going to capture all of that. Smarter Balance is really probably one of the best choices in the nation for that kind of thing, and it's still certainly not perfect. I don't mean to suggest that it is. So in terms of what should we do from an assessment standpoint, probably something fairly similar to what we're doing now. We've had some discussions about, kind of long term, is iReady the right partner for these kind of benchmark interim assessments, and that's definitely something that we're going to look at. We probably want to get through the reading adoption first to not kind of dump that much change on people all at once. From an instructional standpoint, that's really what we're trying to figure out right now with the pilots. So we know that we've got pilots in ELA of 2 of the leading curricula that have been used in schools that have turned things around from an outcome standpoint. So really piloting those 2 makes a lot of sense. And then that's going to be part of our work this year, is looking at what do we need to do differently, what do we need to do to be growing in math.
Just to add to what James said, as you know, as a board, we went through a pretty rigorous process when we began the journey with literacy and really studied what does the science of reading say. So I think as we approach math, some of our beginning conversations have really been around following a similar process for math. So what does the research say? What does the brain science say? What are best practices in math instruction, and how well do our current curriculum and resources align with that? So that is one of the processes we're starting this school year as we take a look at math.
That's a good question. James, this question is really for you. So thinking about iReady and then thinking about SBA correlation and understanding that the SBA used to have strand data that was available for us that would have been able to maybe break concepts into maybe buckets or concepts. So can you talk a little bit about the difference and the use of how our schools are using iReady data, and not, I'm going to say frustration, but the change from SBA having strand data available for the staff, teachers and administrators and district office versus what we have now? That would maybe be helpful.
Yeah. So I'll start with the SBA side. So historically, we used to get strand reports that had a lot of useful information, even down to the individual student. We had some sense of what their strengths were and what they had some continuing challenges in. As the tests got shorter, which was a good change. It was a change that lots of folks in the state were asking for. The Smarter Balance tests are divided into 2 main chunks. There's the computer adaptive part that gets a little bit easier and a little bit harder depending on how the student is doing. And then there's a performance task. As we were going through the pandemic, but not directly related to the pandemic, was when the Smarter Balance Coalition came up with what they call the adjusted blueprint. The computer adaptive portion of the test is now half the length that it used to be. From a teacher standpoint, it doesn't always feel that long because students will take the amount of time that we give them, right? But there's half the items that used to be on there. That means that we don't get the same level of information for an individual student or for an individual classroom that we used to get. Because students just aren't asked enough questions to really give a good sense of did they have that skill overall or not. That's where something like iReady comes in. So iReady is much more granular. And so there's a report available for teachers for a student that really breaks things down into very discrete skills within a standard. It's quite a dizzying amount of information that teachers have access to in order to figure out what is it that the student really needs right now. What is it that they're really able to do right now? What's maybe going to be our next step to help them reach that higher standard?
But just to be clear, iReady, so if we're looking at the other bucket, the response that students give, how helpful is iReady for that portion of the information? So
iReady is not directly helpful for figuring out, say, how students are doing on the writing section, right? It is going to be helpful for us to figure out which specific reading skills they have or which specific math skills. But when we're looking at kind of some of those sections on the Smarter Balance test, we don't get great data. We can look at data kind of across the district as a whole or the school as a whole and see some of those strands, but not necessarily in a way that's particularly actionable like we used to be able to. That's the trade-off of going to a shorter test.
Just curious if you knew why the grades differ so much.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Let's focus on 4th to 5th grade math. So in 4th grade, we see kind of nationally, because many states use Smarter Balanced assessments, a student needs to be around the 50th percentile in order to pass the 4th grade math SBA. That's not how the test is scored. It's not like because one student does well, another student has to do poorly. That's just when we look at when they've achieved high enough on different standards that we'd say they've passed, they're in about the top half of students. When we compare that to 5th grade math, the content gets quite a bit more challenging. That's when really fractions start to show up in a much more specific way on the assessment. And at that point, we start to see that a student needs to be above the 55th percentile nationally. And so we do see across the nation, there's a pretty big drop from 4th to 5th grade math. And there has been every year that we've had the Common Core standards, just again, because that's a pretty big leap. Similarly, it's a pretty big leap to go from the 7th to 8th grade math standards. And so we tend to see that drop. The 5th to 6th grade drop is a little bit of an interesting one. School districts that do middle schools that are 6 through 8, they tend to see a 6th grade drop. And districts that do a junior high model where they have like a K-6 elementary and then a 7 through 9 junior high, they tend to see a drop in 7th grade, kind of as students are making that environmental shift. Okay, and now we've got Kelsey.
Imagine a career that lets you touch the sky, and a program that gets you there before graduation. Washington is the top spot for aerospace jobs, but there's a gap in skilled pilots, engineers, and mechanics. That's where you come in. The Aviation Academy at Henderson Bay, in partnership with the Museum of Flight and Tacoma Narrows Airport, is your launch pad to an aviation career. Here, you're not just a student, you're a co-pilot on your journey to success. With flight simulators, industry standard drones, and mentors from the field, you're ready to taxi into your future with every landing lesson and each takeoff drill. Whether your dream is soaring above the world or managing the runways that make it all happen, the Aviation Academy is your first step toward a high-flying career. Take the controls. Your future is waiting at the Aviation Academy.
Surprise! So I am Kelsey Park. I'm the current CTE director for Peninsula School District. I am really excited to be here tonight to share the launching of our aviation program that is set to start in the 25-26 school year. We know that pilots and aviation have a very rich history here in our Gig Harbor community, and that need for pilots goes far beyond Washington State. And we are excited to be one of 3 districts in the area that will be providing access and certification to students, directly feeding into that industry. I'm excited to share with you a quote from our CFO of the Museum of Flight, who couldn't be here tonight because they are also sharing with their board this evening. So since 2015, the Museum of Flight has partnered with the Puget Sound Skills Center and Green River Community College to host the dual credit CTE preparatory program entitled Aeronautical Sciences Pathway. The program has been increasingly successful in introducing high school juniors and seniors to careers in aviation operations. Alumni of the program go on to attend universities such as Embry-Riddle, University of North Dakota, Central Washington University, as well as Green River College. There is no greater inspiration than hearing from program alumni as they share their accomplishments in careers with airlines and other aerospace companies. Our new strategic plan, the Museum of Flight, asks us to expand our educational reach in Washington State, Expanding the Aerosciences Pathway Program to new regions is one of our priorities. We look forward to partnering with Peninsula School District in your pursuit of launching an aviation program by sharing instructional materials, frameworks, and strategizing on how to establish dual crediting, strategizing on instructor certification, and providing technical assistance, welcoming Peninsula students to the museum for field trips and the use of flight simulators, and partnering to promote the importance and opportunities brought about through aviation education. From Matt Hayes, President and CEO of Museum of Flight. So we will have many more updates for you in February, detailing that and more specifics on the program, but wanted to make sure that you were aware that we are just thrilled to be offering this opportunity for students in the upcoming school year.
I am somewhat, I mean, I had somewhat of a clue, but really speechless. I'm blown away. And I would say, at least for 5 years, probably not more, we have kind of dreamed about this opportunity for our students. Our students have articulated a desire to participate in opportunities that surround this profession. I know Gig Harbor supports a lot of pilot and aviation families. We have a beautiful airport right here in Gig Harbor that I know is excited to participate. This far exceeds all expectations. So I just want to say thank you for the work that went into this, because this is truly groundbreaking, exciting work. So, any other comments? Awesome. Yeah.
It starts next year, so, right?
I like that it's all encompassing. A lot of times we look at the aerospace industry as pilots, but there is a whole lot more to the industry than just pilots. There's all the people that make it work, the mechanics, the luggage handlers, the flight attendants, so all those are good paying jobs. And so, yeah, to see it all encompassing is really good.
Yeah, I mean, and as just the other thing I feel like we've talked a lot about, but it's been a challenge, is bringing all of the local expertise and connecting that with our students. And I just think about the pilots in my family that would love nothing more than to be able to mentor or offer, their expertise. And there are many in this community.
Yeah.
And so that just being able to, I always think about the number one thing that leads a young person into a career is having that mentorship. And we have such an abundance of that in this industry here. That's just really fantastic.
Awesome. Anything from our students? You need to push this to the sophomores. They'll be able to participate next year. And the cupcakes. Should we pass
Yes,
out the cupcakes?
I think we do need to disseminate some cupcakes that have little airplanes. I just would like to say thank you to Kelsey, and I know Mel, you have also been kind of part of this. When we went, we had an opportunity to be hosted up at the Flight Museum, and those partnerships were very fruitful. And so we were really excited. This is your surprise, because I know that you didn't think that this was going to happen so quickly. And it's because we have really committed staff who really reached out. They did all the work and reaching out to Dr. Dana Black and the whole staff, and were selected. This is an honor to be selected by this program. This is not just everyone gets a pony. This is specifically because of the work and the connections that all of you also bring, right? So all of the connections. So we hope that our community hears this loud and clear. There are specifics behind this, but tonight was just an opportunity to say, hey kids, if you want to look into the industry of aeronautical sciences program at Henderson Bay, there will be a space and a place and instructors starting by this time next year. You'll be seeing students and hearing their work. And there might be some other opportunities prior to. Okay, I'm looking for permission. May I say that? Okay, do you want to say just a little tiny bit?
Yeah, we right now are also looking at, there will be an accelerated introductory summer school program that will mirror the program so that if students have after-school commitments or can't make their current timing, there's flexibility built in for students to be able to participate. So we've expanded that to summer, and then we also will have the exploratory aviation program for middle school. There's going to be potentially 2 opportunities for that program for students to enroll.
And we know currently we do have some students from this area that go up to Seattle right now for this program. And so, or go across on the ferry from the Kitsap area. So we're very excited. So if we could just take a quick break and make sure that anyone that wants a cupcake takes one. There are no calories. We aeronautically took out all the carbs. And then we just want to thank all of you for this hard work.
We're going to take a 5-minute break and allow everyone who wants a cupcake to get one, and then we will reconvene at 7:10. periods. The first will be for those wishing to speak on agenda items. For those who wish to speak on topics not listed on the agenda, a separate comment period will be provided later in the meeting. And as usual, you have 3 minutes to speak, and thank you in advance for always setting the example of civility in our discourse here. So I will call your name. Please come to the podium and again state your first and last name. And we will be beginning with Jonathan Bill.
Now, I don't, unlike way too many people on the internet these days, I don't speak against anything unless I have read it and have familiarized myself with the issues. And I got to tell you, I was reading through this, and the first couple of paragraphs sounds very reasonable, and I get to the third paragraph, and it says, employees who use social media platforms are encouraged to remember that the school community may not be able to separate employees as private citizens from their role within the district. I'll be honest, I read that and I audibly said, well, they damn well should. Because we have rights as individual citizens. This takes me right back to the moral turpitude clauses that they had, young female teachers sign in the 19th century as a condition of employment. And we've come full circle of that due to the very nature of the internet and internet controversies, and this really saddens me. And quite frankly, it is one of the contributing factors that made me decide to retire a little earlier than most people, because I saw this coming and it terrifies me. Then I go on and I see the second sentence in that paragraph, which says employee expression on social media platforms that interferes with the district's operations or prevents the district from functioning efficiently and effectively may be subject to discipline, up to and including termination. I'm really proud that after 32 years in the district that my colleagues and I fully understood how our First Amendment rights were limited when we were on the job, when we were representing the district, when we were in the classroom. But we also treasured the rights to self-expression that we had as private citizens. And we never understood that we were to give those up as a condition of employment. We cannot do that. The district should stand up for our rights, not give itself an out to abuse our rights if someone decides that they don't like us. And that is the problem here. Because if I were to be involved in some expression in my private life, completely separated from my time with the district, and someone else decides that they want to object to that, they're the ones interfering with the district, not me. So I think the district needs to reconsider a little bit who is at fault when these things happen. We are in an age now, unfortunately, where American life and our life as public employees is a minefield of misinformation on the internet and people reacting.
Appreciate it.
And
next we have Camry Clausen. If any further comments that can't be completed in 3 minutes, I please ask you to submit them by email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Camry Clausen.
Hello, my name is Camry Clausen, and I'm a junior at Peninsula High School, and I'm here to express my concerns about the new policy regarding staff expression. I would kindly request that the school board writes, with specificity, protections for the teachers to be clearly stated. This policy has the potential to seriously impact our teachers' lives and therefore should not be instated without their input and collaboration. Thoughtful consideration to the privacy and rights afforded to our educators when they are off the clock is imperative. While commenting on the need for a more protective policy for our teachers, I would like to address the elephant in the room regarding the reason we need such clarifications.
I would like to speak for many of my fellow students who have had McSwain and have said what a supportive, welcoming, and inclusive teacher they were. We will continue to lose talented and commendable teachers if we cater to voices in our community and, sadly, even our own school board, who seek to disregard diversity and its importance in the classroom. I don't think many people realize the impact teachers can truly have on their students. They are not just there to teach, but also to support and love the students, guiding them through the difficult stages of life. I would also like to tell anyone who's bothered with McSwain's presence in our school that you can learn a lot from people who don't think just like you. For instance, I have one teacher who puts political propaganda throughout their classroom, most of it right-wing. At first, I found this to be very distracting and it made me very uncomfortable. However, I've come to find value in the opportunities for personal growth through identifying misinformation, the importance of fact-checking, and the need for properly sourcing unbiased information. Learning these skills has empowered me through the knowledge I've obtained, all because I was willing to sit in on some discomfort and be continuously curious. It is my hope that the vociferous minority will come to do the same. After all, there is always much to be learned.
Thank you. Next, we have Christy Wahala. Christy Wahala.
Good evening. My name is Christy Wahala, and I'm here again to comment on agenda item 9.5, the staff expression policy. I was extremely disappointed to see the policy back on the agenda this week with 0 revisions after it was tabled last meeting for further discussion. I've spoken with many district employees who are frankly scared about what this policy could mean for them. There are too many unknowns. Many of these employees are too scared about losing their jobs to publicly share their concerns with the district and the board. The fear is that passing this policy, especially without union guidance, would give the district carte blanche to do exactly that to employees who share dissenting opinions with their employer, to discipline or terminate employees for anything that the community members make enough noise about, for whatever reason, if it, quote, prevents the district from functioning efficiently and effectively. This vague policy would be the death of free thinking in our district, which is the birth of a dictatorship. That in itself is in direct opposition of what a public school system should be striving for. I urge you to please take the time to communicate with your district union leadership before passing such an open-ended policy that affects everybody so deeply. Transparency is so important, and the introduction of this policy has left most of the district staff in the dark. Let me remind you of the district's vision: to foster a culture of belonging where every student is prepared to be a successful and engaged global citizen. Through innovative and rigorous programs, we ensure that each child receives the support they need on their unique journey to excellence. We are dedicated to inspiring and empowering every child every day. If teachers are afraid to challenge students to engage in lively debate and critical thinking, where's the rigor and innovation spoken about? If we are to fulfill this vision, we must also support our staff by fostering a culture of belonging where every staff is inspired and empowered to prepare their students to be successful and engaged global citizens.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Doherty.
Good evening. My name is Chris Doherty, and I'm voicing my concerns to Policy 5254, Staff Expression. This policy seems designed to protect the district and not its staff or educators. I find it subjective, vague, and open to interpretation. The district may assert that this policy is not a direct response to the social media harassment of a former educator, but I have concerns about its implications. The statement, the First Amendment protects a public employee's speech when the employee is speaking as a citizen on a matter of public concern, raises questions. The First Amendment safeguards everyone's voice, even if what they express isn't deemed a public concern. What does the district consider an adverse impact? Is it negative publicity or holding the board accountable? Does this policy also apply to board members who are also representatives of this district? When a staff member or educator faces persistent harassment and threats, does the district view that as an adverse impact? I believe this should be a moment to protect and support that affected individual. Another troubling aspect of the policy is the line encouraging employees to remember that the school community may not distinguish between them as private citizens and their roles in the district. This places the onus on staff members to self-censor. As we know, we cannot control how others perceive us. Some community members believe that censoring students who post photos without consent is a violation of their First Amendment rights, yet they fail to extend that same protection to those who express views contrary to their own biases. The district had a valuable opportunity to promote civility in our community and emphasize the importance of respecting our staff and educators' privacy and their First Amendment rights. Instead, it has opted for a policy that in practice is dangerously vague and threatens the constitutional rights of our staff and educators. If the board approves this policy, I fear we will witness a significant loss of talented staff and educators within our district.
Thank you. And next we have Marcia Harris who signed up. Is she still here? I believe she was. She's gone. I think this was for the. Okay, thank you. Okay, and then after Marcia we had Ben Pinio.
Good evening, members of the community and Peninsula School Board. My name is Ben Pinio. I'm a teacher at Peninsula High School, and in the interest of speaking tonight on Policy 5254, let me explicitly state that I am not here in any official district or educational capacity tonight, but only as a private citizen, homeowner, taxpayer, concerned citizen, and local district voter. I don't think that all needs to be stated, but as Policy 5254 seems to be a catch-all CYA policy for the district, I better CMOA just in case. Under the vaguely worded and overly broad proposed policy 5254, types of outside activities Peninsula staff can be potentially punished for participating in and attending on evenings and weekends, which may upset apparently a vocal set of self-appointed online keyboard warrior local morality police who were just recently successful in forcing out a talented and beloved educator, which this policy now caters to, could include events such as attending a LGBTQ plus event, such as visiting a gay bar, attending a concert, attending a political or human rights protester rally, attending a sporting event and cheering and yelling while perhaps drinking one or more alcoholic beverages, dressing up in LGBTQ plus pride attire for a pride event, attending a police violence protest or a Black Lives rally following an event where police used excessive force, sending political donations to an organization such as the Democratic Socialists of America, attending or being a member of a local mosque or church where the imam or pastor gets in the news for controversial statements, attending a local youth soccer game and acting belligerent towards the referee or other parents, a school district official and leader who goes on Fox News to promote a political viewpoint without making a clear delineation between their official capacity and their private capacity. Language in this policy is so broad, so vague, that it can be used to bully, threaten, intimidate PSD staff, such as the statement, quote, employee expression that has an adverse impact on district operations. Who gets to interpret what is an adverse impact? Imagine a teacher like myself brings a concern and constructive criticism forth to a school board meeting on a Tuesday night and speaks publicly and forcefully about these concerns. Then students and parents from my class watch this on YouTube, share it, spread it, object to something about me, object to a teacher's identity, object to something instruction based solely upon my speech tonight outside of the classroom. And this scenario could be applied to any other types of activity I previously listed. So I ask again tonight, what is considered an adverse impact on district operations, and who will get to make this judgment under this broad policy language? Who gets to delineate between the speech of an aggrieved employee against their employer compared to the speech of an employee in their role as a private citizen speaking to their local school board and community as a local resident and local taxpayer? Such delineations and then leaving these delineations in the power and the hands of our administrators and school boards is dangerous and will have the impact of intimidating school employees and telling our current and future potential employees that the Gig Harbor area is an area where staff should be scared to be themselves outside of work, and that is wrong. So I'm speaking against policy 5254 tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Carol Rivera. Carol Rivera. Carol.
All right, Carol Rivera, President of Peninsula Education Association. I have no notes, so just thought that I wanted to recognize that there is a lot of passion and love for our staff. And I think that with our wellness work and other things that we have been doing, we talk about showing up as our authentic self. We talk a lot about our kids and not wanting them to compare themselves to others and wanting to care about their mental health and well-being. And I think despite everything that is written in the policy and that we've tried to express over the past 3 board meetings, those things are, essential to us as individuals, and that is who we are first and foremost. There is always concern about whether or not the next school board or the next superintendent or whoever else might be in the seat that you're sitting in, how they will interpret that policy or change it. This afternoon or this morning, we had an opportunity to talk with members of the school board as a union to explain many of the things that are objectionable about this policy for our members. And I think that although we understand that the school board needs to write policies, we also understand that it is discretionary and you do have a choice whether or not you want to put this into play. Regardless of what happens after our comment, we continue to want to work together to understand what procedures would follow with that policy and have really some structured discussions about that with all of our union partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Bryce Nelson.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm here to speak on proposed policy 5254. The federal government currently provides between 5 and 10% of PSD's funding through the Department of Education. Political candidates for federal office, including in the current presidential election, routinely advocate in favor of doing away with the Department of Education and its associated funding, since a 5 to 10% funding cut to PSD would obviously interfere with PSD's operations and its effective and efficient functioning. The proposed policy 5254 would arguably prohibit any PSD employee from engaging in any advocacy on social media, supporting any political candidate for federal office who favored these sorts of reductions in federal funding to local school districts. These are the sorts of unintended consequences that vague policymaking creates. Does this board believe that PSD employees that engage in this sort of advocacy should be terminated? If so, then by all means, you should vote in favor of proposed policy 5254. If not, you should continue to allow your employees to express their constitutionally protected rights freely as our founding fathers intended. When creating policy, it is important to see all of the potential consequences, not just those that fit with one's current political preferences. Overbroad language like that contained in this proposed policy can have unintended consequences. Better then to go back to the drawing board and come up with a policy that does not create more problems than it solves. You might even look to other local districts with similar policies rather than reinvent the wheel. I urge you to reject proposed policy 5254.
Thank you. Next, we have George Young. Yes, George Young.
Good evening. I'm George Young. I've lived here in this district for 40 years. Tonight, I think we've got a call for clarity and fairness on 5254. This policy, as it stands, is a glaring example of ambiguity that threatens the very foundation of fairness in our district. It lacks clear guidelines about what actions could potentially adversely impact district operations, leaving teachers vulnerable to arbitrary decisions. Who decides what is harmful? How do they make that decision? The vagueness is only not determinable, it's dangerous. Your teacher contracts already call out clauses to address illegal and criminal behavior, but now there's an unsettling push to police a teacher's personal expression, whether through words, attire, or actions. This is a slippery slope that could put the district at a risk of catastrophic legal battles. Let's consider a couple real-world examples. What if I were a teacher who wore a kilt to a Highland game, enjoyed a few beers, and sang sea shanties? That's just a cultural expression of my heritage, right? Would that be viewed differently if I attended a cabaret in a dress, sipping wine, singing show tunes? Who decides which expression is acceptable? Imagine the teacher at a political rally holding a sign in support of pro-life, pro-choice, pro-Palestine, pro-Israel. Does their stance suddenly become grounds for disciplinary action depending on who's in charge? And what happens if a teacher films police officers using excessive force? Some would label such actions as disgusting and inappropriate. Again, I ask, who is the decider? This policy opens Pandora's box, inviting bias, discrimination, inconsistency in its enforcement. It undermines and cherished rights and puts teachers in the crosshairs of subjective judgment. We must demand clarity, fairness, and respect for personal freedom, or face the consequences of a system that silences and punishes those who dare to express themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment this evening on agenda items. Item 8 on our agenda is approval of consent. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Chuck to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried and the consent agenda has been approved. We are moving on to item 9 on the agenda. These are our action items. And the first on the list is the approval of the second reading of policy 2410 related to high school graduation requirements. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policy 2410 high school graduation requirements?
You can do it.
I'll move to approve policy 2410 high school graduation requirements.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by David to approve policy 2410 high school graduation requirements. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. The second reading of policy 2410 has been approved. The next item is 9.2. This is the approval of second reading of policy 2255 alternative learning experience. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policy 2255 alternative learning experience?
So moved.
Courses, I'm sorry, alternative learning experience courses, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by David and seconded by Chuck to approve the second read of policy 2255 alternative learning experience courses. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Second reading of policy 2255 alternative learning experience courses has been approved. Item 9.3 is the approval of the second reading of policy 2336 required observances, which include Veterans Day, Constitution Day, Temperance and Good Citizenship Day, and Disability History Month. Is there any discussion prior to the vote?
Just one quick comment. This update specifically included Disability History Month, which is this month. And I just wanted to make a quick report that at last week's CPAC meeting, Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, this couldn't be better timing because they've been working really hard on coming up with some communications that they're going to coordinate through the district to start celebrating Disability Awareness Month, and I can't wait for these stories to be shared. And I just wanted to give that group a shout out for their continued good work around raising awareness, students differently abled, and their presence in our district. That's all.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve the second read of policy 2336 on required observances?
I'll move to approve the second reading of policy 2336.
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by David to approve policy 2336, required observances. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Policy 2336 has been approved. Item 9.4 is the approval of the second reading of policy 3230 related to searches of students and student privacy. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policy 3230, searches of students and student privacy?
So moved. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by David and seconded by Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is carried. The second read of policy 3230, searches of students and student privacy, has been approved. Item 9.5 is the approval of the second reading of policy 5254. Given the interest in this policy, I do want to provide a little bit of context and background prior to opening it for discussion. Policy 5254, titled Staff Expression. First, the board would like to point out that we did not write this policy. It was developed by the Washington State School Directors Association as part of their HR series and recommended to boards across the state in April of 2023. It has been thoroughly vetted to ensure it aligns with constitutional protections, including the First Amendment. One of the key responsibilities of this board is the adoption and maintenance of policies, and for the past 2 years, we've been working diligently to update our policy manual to align with current standards. Policy 5254, which falls under the 5000 series that focuses on personnel, has already been widely adopted by districts across the state as it is written. We understand the concerns expressed about the potential ambiguity in the language of this policy and want to emphasize that it is written broadly to allow flexibility in implementation. That said, specific procedures will accompany this policy to guide its application, and we are committed to working collaboratively with the development of those procedures to ensure clarity if approved. This policy is aimed at balancing staff expression with our district's responsibility to maintain an orderly and effective learning environment. And as a board, we have an obligation to review and update our policies that reflect current legal standards while considering the long-term needs of our district. Our government remains thoughtful and prudent and is not tied emotionally to any particular moment or group, but focused on what will best serve students and staff now and in the future. We value the opportunity to work with our unions and their representatives to ensure that mutual understanding is achieved, and we are committed to ongoing collaboration. I also want to reaffirm that this board takes seriously its oath to uphold the U.S. and Washington state constitutions, and there is no intent or desire to infringe upon anyone's constitutional rights through this policy or any other. Finally, I'd like to thank Superintendent Barr and staff members for meeting with me today, and to my fellow directors for trusting me to represent this board in that conversation. I recognize that the format of a business meeting doesn't always allow for in-depth discussion, so I appreciate the opportunity to listen and learn and reinforce our commitment and working in partnership with our unions, our administration, and our staff. Having said that, I now open it to discussion, if there's any discussion prior to the vote.
This has been a journey on this one. I think that, I'm sorry, echoing. I think we've had a lot of attention paid on this, and I think it for good reason. And I think particularly in light of our involvement with the board, with cell phone policies, with signing on to the lawsuit with to Facebook and Meta and all of that. So I think I'm struggling a little bit between intent and outcome right now, because I think what we want to do is set a high bar, right, for how we communicate. And through the anxious generation, one of the learnings I had was really how social media has blurred those lines between private and personal, and it's 24/7 and it's constant. So I guess this also comes back to a book that I would highly recommend people read called Accountable. And it really is what happens in a district when these scenarios play out, where private accounts become public, and the impact it has. I'm concerned, though, now in what my framework and in talking with WASDA, thinking about the intent of this versus the outcome. Are we there? or are we creating more problems? So, okay, yeah, and I thought I had clarity on this in my mind, but I don't know that I do, because I don't know that anybody does. And I know that that language specifically about creating an adverse impact, in the WASDA briefing, they are citing the court cases that is that nexus, right? And it is ambiguous and it's not defined and it is on a case-by-case basis. And how do you write a policy that captures that? I don't know. I know this is an attempt because we want clarity around this. We want clarity, but are we there yet?
I can say that when I saw this policy, it didn't surprise me. Being from a public agency, we already had this policy probably 7 years ago. And so it seemed like just a normal policy that we would adopt. It didn't have a big adverse effect in the fire department. If anything, it made people think and then have responsible debate. And I don't think there was ever a time when you still weren't allowed to express yourself, but it always made you think a little bit about, okay, be responsible, be respectable, especially with your fellow employees. I can think of one individual that did get fired, but that person pushed it beyond the limits and had been warned and warned multiple times, and resulted in that. But that was an egregious situation. The procedures are going to be sat down and worked out with the union. And I think this is just what's happening. We're not the first ones doing it. This has been adopted by a lot of other school districts already, public agencies, private agents. Yeah, I've given it a lot of thought. I've read it over multiple times, along with the other policies that we have. We, as a board, put a policy very similar to this before us a few years ago. So, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion? All right. So our next step would be to move on to the vote. Is there a motion to approve the second read of policy 5254, staff expression?
I'll make a motion to approve 9.5, approval of the second reading of policy 5254.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Chuck and seconded by David. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Policy 5254, staff expression, has been adopted. Next item on the agenda is 9.6, approval of the second read of policy 2030 related to service animals in schools. Is there a motion or any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policy 2030, service animals?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by David to approve policy 2030, service animals in schools. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Second read of policy 2030, service animals in schools, has been adopted. Rolling on to item 9, comments from the community on non-agenda items. I believe we had one who has left, so we don't have anyone signed up to speak on that this evening. So that takes us to item 10, the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. Well, I am going to start and just with reiteration of our Take Flight Aviation Academy. And it is the start of things to come. And so just know that when you hear a formal, this was not really a formal CTE. Is she gone? Yeah, this wasn't her formal time, and so that's why the preemptive agenda, you just saw a CTE update, so thank you for allowing us to surprise you. But there are many more items that she has in her queue, and we had the opportunity, and I'll let those of you that experienced this talk, but I know that this evening I had the opportunity to be a cell tower technician with VR goggles, and I'll let some of you talk, but that is pretty fantastic. So I just want to thank her for coming. I also want to reiterate thank you to students. October 14th through 18th right now is National School Lunch Week, so make sure that you thank all of our PSD food service workers. And then next week, the 21st through the 25th, is National School Bus Safety Week. So make sure that you, if you come across staff, make sure to thank them because they feed us and transport us. I can't think of better things for us to get you to school and to keep you not hangry. Those are two really good things. So, and we are really fortunate to have really the best staff in those areas. And I just enjoy when we have our cook-off. With our national lunch, all of our staff, and always the bus drivers are always they are my favorite because they always show up and they're really so positive for students. I have a very lengthy conversation about the Peninsula High School pool repairs. However, I don't have to read this because Patrick Gillespie is sitting in the back and texted me a picture right before. The water polo team, is that water polo? Yes, was in PHS today in a heated pool that is not leaking and is clean and really looks amazing. And I just want to shout out because, Patrick, I have to tell you, I had moments of panic this last weekend when you said, we're filling it up and we don't know if it's going to, it may or may not hold. So, and I believe that it's better than ever is what I took from our conversation today. better than it was 10 days ago, right? So I hope, yeah, and I want to thank Wendy back there as well and all of the PHS staff that were inconvenienced, the coaches, the students, and I want to thank Gig Harbor for opening the doors and South Kitsap, I understand, as well. Was it South Kitsap? For allowing our students to be able to access their facilities. So that is wonderful. So I don't have to read all of this because the temperature has reached a suitable level for reopening. So thank you, Patrick, so much for that. I also want to just say just a couple things that I think would be of interest to many people is that this staff over here has said yes to so many research projects. I'm looking at all of you. And I had the opportunity to talk with ASU yesterday because we are part of an early adopters for AI. I was in a superintendent focus group, one of 3 school districts in the nation. One was the ASU attached school. One was the large county school district in Texas, and then ourselves. And they were asking really, how have you approached AI? And what I really told them is that we have a supportive board that is supportive of innovation and willing to really think out of the box for our future ready students, and staff that's willing to really do whatever it takes to learn things that are brand new and not afraid to fail as we go and to be really vulnerable, but to be able to learn. And lastly, I would just say, I also shouted out to all of the staff, the teachers that have really leaned into learning really new technology with their students. And I just want to say, without the ability to do that with our staff and without them saying yes and really trying things with students, and many of you are in those classes where you're using ChatGPT or you're using Gemini or you're using all of those tools, what I always find interesting is I talk to other school districts, and they're saying we're not there yet. Like, we don't know how it can be used. And so I want to thank our teachers, our staff for really doing that, because without them, it's just a principle sheet, right? A principles, this is what we believe, but it's not actually in the classroom. So I just, all of those things need to happen, and that really is that secret sauce. So thank you, James, for signing us up for one more research project. And I know when it's your time to have a conversation, there are multiple. We're working with the University of Washington around cell phone policy and so on and so forth. So just know that we really are trying to be really critical of the work that we are doing while we're doing it. And we're trying to learn as much as we can and share the information as we go. And then lastly, I just want to say that I can't wait until tomorrow, because I have the opportunity to go into all of the TKs and to visit all of them. So I'm going to wear my tennis shoes and wear bright clothing so that we can talk about red and blue and yellow and all the primary colors, and count. And I don't know what else we're going to do, but I was thinking it might be a fun opportunity for our student panel that if they wanted to experience something during the school day, maybe we could have a conversation on what might be interesting for you to realize that we're doing in the schools that's not high school related, because we are doing so many different pieces that is probably new to you. So anyway, I will close it at that. Thank you.
Item 11 is board discussion and comments. Anyone have?
The last time we started with Chuck, I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
Work our way down. So last week, on Friday, I got to attend our Rotary, Friday morning Rotary. Creston is in the same Rotary, and once again, we were proud of our Navy JROTC program, our commanding officer, executive officer, and what's the third person, Master Chief, maybe? Can't remember what the third person was. But anyway, the three senior members of our JROTC were there, and Master Chief were there, and telling the Rotary about how thankful they are from the past. The Rotary gave our JROTC grant money to help them with their program to get it up and running, and damn it, why am I don't get choked up on that. Our program has come so far in just 3.5 years to get nationally recognized and be the only one in the state of Washington to get invited to walk in DC next year. That's way cool, way cool. And so they weren't there asking Rotary for money this time. They were just there thanking them to say, now that we are recognized as by the Navy as a full-fledged JROTC program, it opens lots of doors for our program, and it's just really exciting to see that. I got to replace a knee today in VR, so our CTE programs are just rocking it. We're doing so much great thing. And then Creston, after I replaced the knee, Creston told me to climb a 400-foot tall tower wearing a VR hood, and it's interesting. You know, I missed a rung on the ladder at 400 feet, and Creston said, jump. And I'm like, I tried to jump, and you're like, dang, you know, it feels like you're falling off a 400-foot ladder. So I was like, when I'm on a harness working, you can feel the harness, but on that VR, you don't have that same sense of comfort. And it's really, really cool to see what we're doing in this school district around CTE. It's also Cancer Awareness Month. So anyone who's lost a loved one to cancer, my heart goes out to you. So thank you.
Not a whole lot, other than just kind of one more item that came out of the CPAC meeting and underway for Day of Champions planning. And I'm not going to do too much revealing of what that is, other than it's going to be an amazing all abilities adaptive event. It's coming to Peninsula School District, and it's going to be amazing. So thank you, CPAC, again, for all their work, and for Janet Rush and all of her staff for, similar to JRTC, it's only been 2 years, and the work that that group is being able to do has really been impressive.
I am so proud to be part of a school district that is leading in so many ways. My son does cybersecurity for our government. And so I'm keenly aware of some of the things going on out there, and I've been doing research on some of the things that are happening. And we are in the forefront talking about teaching kids how to be responsible with social media. And we probably have to write that curriculum because I don't think anybody has it. But my discussions with Chris are around a lot of that, and AI and how we lead. And it's pretty scary out there. The research that I've been doing about Google, Facebook, all these guys, they're just, they're preying on our kids, on us, and it's sad. So also, I just want to make a comment about the approval of the staff expression policy. There was a lot of debate in the fire department when we passed it too. Obviously a smaller organization, but it was pretty universal, very similar to where there's a state organization that has a template policy. It did not shut down responsible debate. And I hope that if anything, it does the same thing here and just allows people to have open discussions in a responsible manner in our schools and in the community, and just brings into play the role of decorum that is necessary and the ability to show respect for differing opinions. I look forward to implementation of the procedures. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have too much else to add. I will also jump on and kind of address the elephant in the room, because that was a tough evening. I know we are partners with our staff, even though I know sometimes it might not appear that way. Something I didn't say in the discussion was this policy does not give the school district any authority that it didn't already have. That doesn't change what our intent, and Jennifer, you spoke pretty directly to this, is that we stand as leaders in this community for what we are asking our kids to do and model as well. And in May, we adopted a board operating protocol that holds ourselves to that same standard. And that's a question that we've received a lot. What are you doing for yourselves? We say the same things about ourselves. We have written superintendent's goals that holds her to that standard, and also that will provide her with tools to ensure that we have a highly functioning staff. So I do look forward to that collaborative work on the procedure, and with all the districts across the state that we have spoken with that have implemented this, is really that's where the work happens. And I just want to thank all of you for how much time and thought you've put into this. I know it's not easy. It's not easy to get up here and make a decision like that. But we were elected to make hard decisions. We've made them before, and we will make them again. And knowing that we have the best interest of our community in mind when we do so. Super proud to be here with these kids and hear about all the things that you're doing. You are leaders in your community and your schools, and always I'm amazed at how busy you are and how you keep up with this work and your schoolwork, and you're so successful in sports and theater and all that you do. So thank you for coming and sharing that with us tonight. Our next meeting will be on November 12th here at 6 o'clock at Swiftwater Elementary, and we are adjourned at 8:02. Thank you.